Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberker. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi arrived in Turkey on Wednesday, where he met his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan. The visit comes less than a day after Wang's reappointment, replacing the previous Chinese foreign minister, who mysteriously vanished from public view for over a month. Wang later was received by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in the first high-level visit by a Chinese official to Turkey in nearly 2 years. President Erdogan conveyed his desire for stronger collaboration with China while also creating more sustainable structures for trade. Currently, China holds a massive trade surplus with Turkiye at over $30 billion. Wang reiterated his no-strings-attached support for Turkiye's role in regional as well as global affairs. The two touched upon issues including the ongoing war in Ukraine and China's trillion-dollar Belt and Road Initiative, where Turkey is playing a crucial role. The Chinese foreign minister's visit comes as debate grows on whether Turkey could become a full member of Chinese-led groups like BRICS and the SCO in the near future. And now to discuss the Chinese foreign minister's visit to Turkey, joining me now from Ankara is Suay Nilhan Acikalin. She is an associate professor at Ankara Haci Bayram Veli University. And from Vienna, Harvey Dzodin. He is a senior fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Suay, China's foreign minister has held meetings with the Turkish foreign minister as well as the Turkish president. Is there any significance to his visit, and what do you make of its timing?
Thank you, Ayşe. Actually, this is first of all, we should underline that it is the first official visit of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, Wang Yi, because he was just at appointment a few hours before his visit to Turkey. And the timing is, of course, an important because the visit was just made after the NATO summit that was mainly focusing on the NATO's approach in Asia Pacific. And also, it's also important for timing regarding the renovation of the grain deal agreement, while the geopolitics dynamics have been quite high tension in this geography.
So, Harvey, how would you define relations between Ankara and Beijing? I mean, how have both countries deepened their ties in the past couple of years through the pandemic, global economic uncertainty, as well as the war in Ukraine?
Relations are generally very good, maybe with the exception of China's purported treatment of the Uyghur people. And speaking of the pandemic, in 2020, Turkey received vaccines and medical supplies during that nightmarish period of profound challenge. So I remember myself in 2018 that Turkey and China also celebrated a year of culture and tourism in which I was honored to attend. And I thought that, frankly, it helped both nations build cultural and people-to-people relations. And just before COVID struck, both countries signed an MOU cooperating with China's Belt and Road Initiative. Your country's benefiting from Chinese investment and financing for infrastructure projects like railways and
Yes.
ports, energy, and telecom.
So, Suay, what are the major conflicting as well as colliding interests between the two nations when it comes to Central Asia and the Middle East?
First of all, for the Middle East, especially in the last Congress of the Communist Party in China, we saw expanded extension and also changing in their foreign policy, and China started to play a mediator role in Middle East that we saw between the Saudi Arabia and Iran. And that's why it seems that the changing foreign policy of China will be interesting for, of course, Turkey's interest in the geography as well. But the main topic, of course, the main conflicted or the cooperation area possibly would be the energy sector, especially after the Russian-Ukrainian war. So in terms of the Middle East and East Mediterranean, and of course, including the Central Asia Belt and Road Initiative, and of course, especially transportation and energy sector will be the both conflicted and also potentially cooperation area for two countries.
So, Harvey, what's your take on that? Are there more conflicting or more colliding interests between the two countries?
I think there's more interest to cooperate than are colliding. So you do have competing interests in the energy sector, like was just discussed, especially in Turkmenistan. But I believe that as things are developing now, the stars are aligned for more and more cooperation between China and Turkey. And I think that's a good thing for both countries. I think it's a good thing for the world, actually.
So, Suay, how have they managed to separate their economic interests from their political disagreements so far?
Actually, in last 20 years, generally Turkey and the China relations mostly focusing on the developing of economic relations, and the biggest challenge between the two countries' relations is of course the Uyghur issues. But apart from the Uyghur issues, both countries have been successfully work together on the realizing the middle corridor in the Belt Road Initiative, as well as telecommunication and other infrastructure projects in Turkey, and
Hmm.
also including investments. So if you look over the general picture of these, how we separating, just focusing on the eliminating asymmetrical elements in economic relations, both countries give more pay and the encouragement for developing the new positive agenda.
So, Harvey, how has China's Belt and Road Initiative added momentum to bilateral ties? How vital is Turkey's geographical location for the project? And what's the Chinese view on that?
Well, look, China isn't called and hasn't been called for many thousands of years the Middle Kingdom for nothing. And your country, Turkey, is a Middle Kingdom as well, because you're in a very significant geostrategic place, and you're the bridge between Europe and Asia. So the Belt and Road Initiative is an attempt to rekindle the ancient Silk Road, and your position in that ancient Silk Road and in the modern day BRI is critical to its success. And I believe that it's going to bring the countries together, and not only China and Turkey, but the countries in the region through which goods and things will be passing through. So I think it portends quite a bright future, actually.
So, Shah, has Russia's attack on Ukraine made the middle corridor, which is Turkey's section of the BRI project, made it more relevant than the northern one? And is it going to be an irritant for Russia?
It's hard to answer. Actually, we can say both partially yes and no. The point is that the Russian-Ukrainian war changed lots of geopolitical realities in this region. That's the fact that. But on the other hand, as the Harvey also touched upon, that the Turkey's geographical position and Turkey's potential in the production lines has been increasing in last 10 years. And in this respect, we can say that realizing the middle corridor through the Turkey has been more realistic project or upcoming project in terms of logistics and the cost. But when it comes to the Russian case, I think that Russia will approach positively in terms of the energy and also production issues. But it is still not easy to say fully yes or no.
So, Harvey, this week Istanbul hosted a major defense expo called IDEF. Dozens of Chinese companies participated in hopes of not only selling to foreign buyers, but also to seek partners here in Turkey. So the question is, could a deeper cooperation on the defense sector offset Turkey's trade imbalance with China, which is still a concern for Ankara?
Well, I don't think that defense cooperation is going to necessarily be able to completely erase this trade deficit that Turkey has with China, but I think it would certainly help. And so this IDEF, it's actually called the International Defense Industry Fair. And what's really interesting about it this year is for the first time, the UAE and Chinese companies have overtaken US companies at the fair. So 74 Chinese companies signed up, but only 5 American ones. I think China's going to be there with an eye peeled for acquiring Turkish companies in the defense sector, marrying Turkish and Chinese technical production know-how to lower costs, increase efficiencies, and things like that. And I think one target for these kinds of companies is going to be the African market. But the $64,000 question is going to be, how will the US, the EU, and NATO view such actions, and to what extent will they go on to try to block them? It's going to be quite a battle royal.
So, Suay, speaking of the African market, Chinese foreign minister has also traveled to Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. What does it tell us about China's strategic outreach to the continent?
Well, China has been one of the biggest players in Africa in last decade. We can say that right now, Turkey, Russia, China, and partially some of them in France has been the biggest competitors in the African markets. But we can say that the working in the Africa together with China is not easy, especially in the defense sector. But if we look over the other sectors, especially they are quite popular, especially Chinese construction firms and the business are quite popular in different African continents, and they have also long-term projects in these African countries. But if we look over the general competition in this continent, we can say that China will have a more long-term project in some specific sectors compared to the Russia and the Turkey, but Turkey is mostly focusing on the win-win cooperation both in the diverse sectors as well as the political level.
So, Harvey, what's the reason behind Turkey's ambitions to become part of international groupings, usually led by China, like BRICS and the SCO?
Well, like China, Turkiye has this ancient history of being a world leader. And I think both countries want to get back to this role of global leadership. And I think that they've partially attained it. So participating in BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization and other multilateral groupings is a way to network. It's a way to increase trade. It's a way to increase the clout of the two countries that we're talking about.
All right, Harvey and Suay, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.